Hey everybody, and welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Today we are back with Cardano. If you like the content, give the video a like so I know to make more of it. Getting straight in, looking at this chart, I will admit it's not the easiest thing to look at. It's a bit harsh on your eyes, but if you're like me, looking at your crypto portfolio every day hasn't been nice on your eyes either. And that is because if we zoom in and take a look at 2021 when we peaked out, Cardano has been well below its all-time high ever since, with us needing, from current price, about an 800% move. So if you bought at the top, you need an 800% move to break even, with the price of Cardano being 35 cents at the time of recording. In this video, we're going to be comparing mainly 2019 to this year, 2024. And I'm going to present my case to you on more or less why I think they have played out in an extremely similar way, and also what that implies. With the first, and to be honest with you, rather weak point, that the trading volumes that we had in 2019 are the trading volumes that we've had in 2024 are roughly 1.5 times greater than what we got back in 2019. If we take a look at this first rally up with Cardano, took 29 weeks, we had $1.4 billion in trading volume. If we take a look here, we've had $2 billion of trading volume in an even shorter period of time. And that is roughly a 1.5x increase in trading volume. Similar thing with this 25-week period afterwards. Back in 2019, it was around 850 million. Here it's about 120 million, roughly plus 50%. And even now, looking at this 37-week time frame back in 2019, this hasn't even concluded yet in current time. And if we check how many weeks we have left, we still have 8 weeks before we reach 37 weeks. So we're currently 29 weeks from this peak. We've already matched the trading volume, more or less. So that is the first key bullish thing that I wanted to point out. And you'd be surprised by how many altcoins can't tick that box, saying that they have even close to the trading volume that they had 4 or 5 years ago. Because with a lot of these altcoins, they have one cycle where they have all the trading volume, they have all the crazy moves, and then, you know, the bear market afterwards, the pre-halving year afterwards, the halving year afterwards, their trading volume is minuscule. It's nothing. It's basically bots just trading on the network. So Cardano, for me, ticked that box. Really important. There's a heartbeat. Now, the second thing is that looking at the actual moves / time frames from 2018 and 2019 and comparing them to 2023 and 2024. Back in 2018, we had a very short but extremely volatile move to the upside. I would argue we saw a similar thing play out here back in 2023. Very short, pretty volatile move to the upside. We then retraced down to those lows, which we saw also in 2018. We went to the high, we came back down to the lows. And once we hit that low, we then went into another rally. We then had another rally, as we can see. And then, of course, going to 2024, we can see once we came back down to these lows, at the end of 2023, we went back up and had another rally. Now, since then, Cardano has traded down. And this was exactly the same thing that happened back in 2019. Cardano traded down. Now, if you want to look at it from the high to the very ultimate low, the all-time low for Cardano, basically, which was the COVID sell-off, that was 37 weeks after the high. And we moved down below where we initially moved up from. If you want to bring that over and put 37 weeks after our first move up from the high, we can see that basically brings us to the end of the year. End of November is when it says we'll get our low, which is worth remembering at this point because a lot of things, spoiler alert, in this video points to December, November time being when we potentially start to make moves away from the lows. So, okay, 37 weeks. If it's going to follow how it did last time, more or less, assuming that price was going to continue to go down, even though COVID happened, Black Swan, whatever, we got an extra 12 weeks of downward price action. It's just going to do the same this year. It's going to play out the same way, and it's going to bottom out around November time. That is a valid point. However, if you want to look again back at 2019 and say, no, COVID was a Black Swan event. And if you look at Cardano, we can see that it put in a low here and the trend had reversed afterwards. We broke above our bull market support band. things were looking really good. Then COVID happened and we dropped right back down below. Once COVID scare was finished, we rallied straight back up. So this was just black swan. We shouldn't include it. If you want to look at it that way, it took 25 weeks from the high to the low to bottom out. Now, if we take a look at what's currently happened, at first glance, that looks like it's not true. Because if we take 25 weeks, it brings us to this week here, which was not our low. We bottomed out 4 weeks before that, and we didn't break above our bull market support band quickly afterwards like we did back here. We can see once we put in our low, 4 or 5 weeks later, we were above the bull market support band. Going to this low, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks now, and we're well below our bull market support band. So we're not hitting that 5-week time frame. And if you just want to ignore 25 weeks and say from the low, we're definitely not hitting the time frame because it's been about 8, 9 weeks now, still not above the bull market support band. Now you could make the case and say ADA's just bottomed out and it's slowly trading up instead. We're not getting the explosive start yet. That might come November, December timeframe. And the reason you might say November, December timeframe is because if you look back at when we did bottom out last time, after that 25 weeks, it was mid-December. That's when ADA bottomed out, the week of December 16th. Now, looking at current price, week of December 16th is still quite a way away. But you know what it lines up pretty nicely with, generally? The 37-week period that we got from 2019. So in a way, I think it's a very weird blend of the two. I think we're going to see a similar time duration to the 37 weeks that we got last cycle, but I think we're going to bottom out at the same time seasonally, which was December, if you're excluding the COVID black swan. So these two moves actually complement each other quite nicely, and even the 25 weeks, just putting in an extra low, the second low, all seems to synergize quite likely. But again, who knows? You can also make the case that the fact that we did make a close above the bull market support band, that is very bullish, even if though we are now down below it. The fact that we've had a close above the bull market support band shows that ADA has a bit of fight in it. There's a bit of kick left. It's usually a good sign if it's starting to make moves above the bull market support band. Another thing to note is that last time from this low to the ultimate low, which was the COVID sell-off, this took place over 66 weeks for Cardano back in 2019. Taking a look at where we currently are, we've had 55 weeks since we first moved up out of this range from the low, where we had our bull run type of thing, our small bull run, and where we currently are, again, 55 weeks. Stretching that out to 66, would you believe, puts us more or less bang on mid-December. So whichever way you look at this with Cardano, it suggests that you're either getting a low in mid-December or we're leaving our bear run mid-December, end of the year timeframe. Now, something that might cause Cardano to trade downwards for longer than December potentially is basis points. If you want to look at it in terms of basis points, we can see that back in 2019, when the Fed started to cut rates, we can see Cardano just traded downwards during this time. And once we finished cutting rates, that's when Cardano started going up. Okay, very simple, very basic way of looking at things, but Cardano peaked when we started cutting and it bottomed out when we stopped cutting. If you want to apply that logic here, you could be waiting a long time for Cardano to move into a bull run. However, I would disagree that that's the case, that Cardano is following this. I think basis points play a role, but I don't think it's synced up exactly. Because as we can see, we put in our high when we had our first rate cut. Here we put in our high 5 months beforehand, before we got our first rate cut. 24 weeks. So there is a potential for that, but in all honesty, I don't think it plays a huge role. I think basis points have to be low for Cardano to have a good bull run. The exception of that, of course, is when Cardano launched. Rates were pretty low, to be honest with you. They were 1.2. Cardano had an amazing 10-week bull run, basically. I don't think we're ever going to see Cardano make a move like this ever again. The market cap is just too high. It's been around for too long. There's so much liquidity that a move like this I don't ever see it happening. So excluding this from our information, Cardano doesn't really get bull runs when rates are high. So maybe if by the end of the year, we're currently at 5 basis points, there's a potential that we could be at 4 basis points by the end of the year. That might be low enough that Cardano is able to start rallying. Who knows? I certainly don't. It's something where we're just going to have to wait and find out. Anyway, moving on to the Bitcoin pair. We can see that leading up to the sell-off that took place in 2019, Cardano had 2 moves up against its Bitcoin pair. We got this first leg and then this second leg. The second leg equaling about an 86% of a move. If we take a look at what we got here, we did get a similar kind of first leg, second leg move, where from the low to the high, Cardano moved about 62%, so less than what we got here. And the total moves from low to high, this first cycle was 130%. What we had back in 2024, end of 2023, was about a 100% move. So less of a move. However, bringing over the 51 weeks, a year basically, from this high, that's where Cardano bottomed out. That's where our final low was before we started making big moves against Bitcoin. And if we zoom in and take a look, we can see that 51 weeks from this high that we visited, that is the same price, by the way. We peaked out as 2020, so we'll get into that comparison in a minute, but just know that we're going to be comparing to 2020 as well. But back to 2019, 51 weeks puts us December timeframe when we put in this low. Now, I think we've actually basically put in our low for Cardano. I don't think we should be expecting to get a lower price, because if we take a look last time, Cardano actually moved down from this high to this low after 18 weeks. It took us 18 weeks to get to the lowest price for Cardano, but we stayed at that low for such a long period of time before rallying up. Now, it's taken us much longer to move from this high down to this low, but like before, we have been at that low for a while. We've basically been bouncing off this low. And so last cycle, once we had this support, Cardano only wicked below it. Here we haven't even had any wicks below yet. We've just held and moved off above it. Now the bull market support band is kind of coming down to meet us at these low prices. I think the next strong bounce that Cardano gets, we could move above it. And again, if it's going to play out similarly to how it did back in 2019, we are looking at that happening anywhere from now to the next 8 weeks, if it's going to be a December type of move that we had before, like 2019. The only difference, of course, being that down here, it stayed at these lows for about 33 weeks before it rallied up. Here, we've been at these lows from this low for about 16 weeks. But if you want to weirdly include this first low here, that wasn't too far off the lows that we're currently at, if you want to include this, that'll bring us to 25. If you then want to basically stretch that 25 weeks out to our 51 weeks so that it lines up here, it's 34 weeks. So it's the same time frame. Probably useless information, but just something that I noticed. Now looking at 2020, because I think 2020 looks very similar to what we've currently had as well, it's definitely worth taking a look at. Depending on how you want to measure it, 2020 can line up nicely, or it doesn't fit at all. Here we have 23 weeks from this high down to the low, and then we had our bull run. Here, if you want to go 23 weeks, you're not looking at the low. It's just some arbitrary week here in the middle of this sell-off. Nowhere near the low, basically. However, if you want to look at it in a different way, and look at it, how long after the halving did Cardano put in its low against Bitcoin? It took 32 weeks for us to put in this low. And we can see this low was at a price of about 600 Satoshis. The close was about 600 Satoshis, just under. If we go over to what we're currently experiencing, and I pull this up so that we can see the whole picture, we can see that if we go 32 weeks after the halving, that puts us at the start of December again. And we are currently trading below 600 Satoshis, where we were here. So here we wicked down to a low of 500 Satoshis, totaling a 68% move. But our close was around 600 Satoshis. Here we're well below. And in fact, we're basically slap bang in the middle from the weekly close back in 2020 and the lowest wick that Cardano got. We're slap bang in the middle. So for me to be honest with you, I think we're looking at our low. I don't know if we're going to wick down to this 500 Satoshi level like we did last time. I wouldn't hold out for it. I think it is extremely coincidental that we've basically started at the same price of 1,600 Satoshis And here, starting at the same price, 1,600 Satoshis, we've moved down below the 600 Satoshi range during a similar time frame. And not only is it a similar time frame to 2020, it's also a similar time frame to 2019, because plus 51 weeks from the high and plus 32 weeks after the halving line up to the exact same week. The exact same week, which is in December, which is also where we bottomed out here. This was December, back in 2020. So far, basically everything pointing towards a December low, or at least a December reversion, where we start to see some positive price movements. We've also been hitting the bull market support band here as well, similar to back in 2020 when we came up into the bull market support band, came back down below before finally moving above it. Same here where we tested the bull market support band quite a few times back in 2019 before breaking above it. Ultimately, when we started moving into the bull market support band range, soon afterwards we had strong rallies up and above. We've now started testing this bull market support band. Based on what's happened previously, there's a good chance that soon, in the next 8 weeks or so, from now till the end of the year, we make strong moves up. Now, another thing that I would like to have a look at, just very quickly, is basis points. If we zoom out and take a look, again, it's a similar story to the US dollar chart. We have our high before the first cut, and we start to rally up considerably soon after the final rate cut, when we reach our low. Again, a potential spanner in the works is we've only just had our first rate cut now, which, if we're comparing to 2019, because that's the only time that Cardano has experienced highs like this in terms of basis points, it continued to trade down well below its bull market support band until those rates were low. Again, a good question to ask is, why December? Why does it always seem to be December? I can't answer that for you, but if I was going to give you some prompts, the election would come to mind. Just basic Bitcoin seasonality. It's always been December, so why wouldn't it keep being December? Ultimately, who knows? But most of the indicators, or all of the indicators that I've presented to you today, which is in no way every single indicator, but quite a few interesting ones, all seem to point towards end of this year, next 8 weeks, when we start to make strong moves up. If we do make strong moves up, where could that bring us? Well, historically, when we've been at this price range back in 2020, we moved up an astounding 1,000% against Bitcoin, which during this time, I think did a 10x in total, basically. So Cardano went mental. Do I think we'll get similar moves against Bitcoin again? I honestly don't think we'll return to these highs. Not this bull run. That's not me hating against Cardano. That's just me personally, from my experience and looking at lots of altcoins, especially the ones that have stood the test of time. They seem to struggle to continue to put in all-time highs against Bitcoin as times go on. But that doesn't mean that they can't make money, and that doesn't mean they can't make more money than Bitcoin during the bull run. I think Cardano will outperform Bitcoin during the bull run, and potentially we might move back up to our 3,000 Satoshi range. That would be a 400% move. Again, if you're expecting Bitcoin to make a 3x from this point onwards, from 60k to say 180, 200k, you're expecting Cardano to make roughly a 12 or a 13x, which I think is quite reasonable for an altcoin of its age and market cap. But again, those are conclusions you must come to yourself. That about wraps up the video. I think I've said everything that I want to say. If you liked the video, please leave a like. It really helps out the channel. And if you thought that I made some good points, share it with your mates so that you can all afford Lambos by mid-2025.